Inclusion for the Culture Club.
KUAM News Hotspot is brought to you by
Pacific Points, Do More, Get More, and Calvo Enterprises, Inc.
The work week is just about over, but that doesn't mean we don't have stories for you. We got a lot to cover. So this is the Hotspot. I'm Jason Salas. It is Lord of the Rings Day. Let's go.
The menu, brought to you by King's Restaurant, always open, always local, and Ruby Tuesday Guam, home of the Fresh Garden Bar.
We will tell you in today's show exactly who has ultimate control of the spending of GVB, plus United's Narita route is officially back after more than a decade. Also, we've got details to an upcoming Glute camp happening at Custom Fitness, and the hub with Nestor Lecanto. Well, right off the top, please, everybody, do not believe a social media post about an impending typhoon, as our friends at Homeland Security and Civil Defense, as well as the National Weather Service, are advising it's a long outdated post and not a reflection of current weather conditions. They are reminding the community to check for dates and images. Yes, that timestamp thing is kind of critical, everybody. When articles circulate, and verify information before sharing it further. Make sure to see what date it was published. The NWS is predicting mostly dry weather and gentle trade winds through Labor Day. Also today, a federal judge heard arguments from the DOJ and the former president's lawyers over his request for a neutral attorney to review the materials seized from his former estate. She did not issue an immediate ruling and said she would issue a written order in due course.
Attorneys for former President Trump appeared upbeat as they walked out of a federal courthouse in Florida.
How'd it go?
Well.
Inside, Trump's legal team and U.S. Department of Justice lawyers presented arguments to federal judge Eileen Cannon on Trump's request for a special master to review materials seized from his Florida home last month. DOJ attorneys told the judge they have already examined more than 500 pages, 64 sets of potentially privileged materials. But in a court filing Wednesday, the former president's legal team claimed the DOJ's own review of the documents for attorney-client privilege had, quote, deficiencies.
You accumulate a lot of stuff over a term, and then all of a sudden you're leaving, and stuff gets packed up and sent.
The U.S. Justice Department fiercely pushed back against the appointment of a special master in its filing this week, saying it's unnecessary and could significantly harm national security interests.
The DOJ's filing included this stunning photograph of top-secret documents recovered from a container in Trump's office that were seized during the August search. It also said the government had evidence of possible obstruction, alleging that Trump's representatives misled federal officials when they claimed all classified material had been turned over months ago.
These documents are marked classified, and they were not returned after Trump's lawyer on Trump's behalf certified that there were no such documents.
In court, the former president's lawyers said that the president typically has the highest level of access to documents and equated the current state of affairs to that of a, quote, overdue library book. His team also said the DOJ's photo was, quote, perfectly staged, and they called for the temperature to be lowered on both sides. Natalie Brandt, CBS News, Washington.
In other news, the debate over the ultimate control over the spending at the Guam Visitors Bureau has now been put to rest, as agency president and CEO Carl Gutierrez says the next fiscal year's budget bill makes it clear that he is in charge.
In passing that last night, they put in a provision to say that to make sure that they understand that this budget for 1 year is actually under the control of the president and CEO of GVB.
Gutierrez has been at odds with the GVB board over spending decisions and is challenging long-established practices by the elected board members. Specifically, Gutierrez says they are conflicted and went into what he describes as self-imposed exile since May after realizing there's a business risk if they continue to operate in contradiction to law.
They pay like $47,000, a little bit less than $47,000, and they come in and they control $22 million. And so that's the problem with that there, is that they're not here for free. They're here protecting their own interests.
GVB policy allows companies to buy memberships on behalf of employees, which can translate into votes for GVB board membership.
And that's why they think they could get away without having to declare all the conflicts when they vote for airline incentives or hotel incentives and stuff like that. We're going to have to clear that up. It's going to take a while, probably up to the end of the year, to change some laws and to change the actual rules and regulations.
He also takes exception to elected members not being required to declare any potential conflict.
There's so much conflicted people in here that we have to clean that up. The only thing that the board has to do by law is to submit the budget. Once the budget is approved, that's management to operate it, not the board. But that's not what they want. They want to be the one that dictate to management where to put those monies. That's the illegal.
But the point in electing industry members is precisely because of their industry expertise. Guterres argues they still can have input.
That's why we have committees. We have committees from the industry, not from a director.
A consultant was hired to review board rules and regulations, and a final recommendation is possible by the end of the year. Meanwhile, the biannual election for new board members is scheduled for October. For KUAM News, I'm Nestor Lecanto.
After more than a decade in business news, the Narita to Saipan direct United flight is back. The flight touched down just before 2 a.m. today. The first passengers were tourists and NMI government officials, including the governor, were greeted by a festive and lively United staff and a water salute. United offers 3 flights a week on this route with a 737, which can carry more than 160 passengers. It marks a renewed effort to revive the Japanese tourism market as part of a $15 million investment funded by federal money. Officials say they're just as excited to provide more flights to Asia for locals to travel and connect to farther destinations. Tomas will have more later on. Turning to sports now, Dave Delgado is standing by with Coach Will Stinnett as an FSM basketball tournament is taking place up at the Dedido Sports Complex.
With me on the show, Will Stinnett, the tournament coordinator for the FSM basketball tournament going down here at the Guam Sports Complex gym. Hats off to the FSM community for coming out and showing up real big.
Yes, I just really like to thank everybody that came out, the fans, the participants especially. We were able to get 12 teams to participate in the double elimination games. Great opening ceremony. We played 3 times a week.
All right, it's time for Feed Me Fridays now, where Daniel Perez is whipping together a peanut butter and jelly milkshake with Devondale milk.
It's Feed Me Fridays on KUAM News Hotspot, brought to you by Devondale, real milk from free grazing cows.
Hey guys, it's another edition of Feed Me Fridays, and we're continuing with our little milkshake series. This time, it's the liquid version of our favorite PB&J. And yes, in case if you are wondering, my big anime fans, I am wearing a Fairy Tail shirt. So, real simple, Devondale milk, you can never go wrong with this. Jif peanut butter, everybody's favorite peanut butter. And of course, we got Smucker's strawberry jam. Real simple. All you gotta do is get your handy dandy blender, put all of this in. Oh yeah, and you can add an ice cream. It can be any flavor ice cream, it doesn't really matter. And then that's when you add everything in. So, let's give it a shot and see how the liquid version of our favorite sandwich tastes like. Oh, that definitely smells like PB&J. Woo, look at that. That is a milkshake right there. All right, guys, bottoms up. Oh, you can definitely taste more of the peanut butter, but there is the sweetness of the jam. And of course, you can still taste the Devondale milk and a bit of the ice cream. So guys, if you are bored or if Bae is a bit angry at you and you kind of want to make her happy, and if she loves PB&J, you can make this for her so that she'll be not angry at you anymore. Anyways, guys, we'll see you next week for Feed Me Fridays. Thank you to our friends at Devondale. See you guys, and adios.
It's Feed Me Fridays on KUAM News Hotspot, brought to you by Devondale, real milk from free grazing cows.
Well, it's Friday, of course, if you check your calendar, and you know what that means. There's a brand new episode of the One Micronesia podcast, and here to tell us all about it is that show's very, very popular host, Victorious Falat. Vic, half a day, man.
What's up, bro? Good morning.
Yeah, good morning. I know you had a blast covering the Micronesia Youth Forum. I was talking to some of the organizers about it, and they were super, super excited, but you were actually there.
Yeah, I was there. So it took place, I did not know that the first forum happened at that same the same lecture hall. So I know you'll see in the clip that we're going to play in just a little bit. You know how from Sam to Paul to Pao, how kind of like it brought them back in time, and especially that they did a successful second forum, but without Ed. So you know that kind of like played a big part around it. But it was definitely a success, and you got to shout it out to Team Manielu, Micronesia Resource Center, and all the sponsors who came and really put this whole event together. And the cool thing was, you know, they expected, and this was lunch kind of delayed because they expected a certain amount of participants, but they ended with another 100 added onto that. So they had to like you know, scramble and go and order more food. But at the end of the day, everybody got food and all the kids had a great time.
Okay, so I know you were out there. What was it like to actually, you know, they say boots on the ground, right? To actually be in that moment and, you know, like feel, you know, the energy, the positivity, you know, having like people of all Pacific cultures, like all just talk about things that are important to them. Because I mean, you know, you and I are getting old. I mean, this was a youth forum and everything like that. So like, did you still feel like that you could kind of like have a sense of like what was important to young people?
Yeah, and it really goes to the topics and the issues that were talked. So what happened was they split the kids into these different groups, and I think before the forum, they had them sign up, and they had to choose what kind of topics they want to discuss or what groups they want to be in. So you know so it went to you know, let's go ahead and it went to stuff like drug and alcohol. That was where I was at the most, was the drug and alcohol. They talked about, we had the master navigator, Larry Raggetail there to talk about and kind of explain how to use a traditional navigational chart. They went from that to, our guy Farron was there, the Guam guy was there too.
Farron Tyron, of course,
Farron Tyron, he was there to talk about the whole environmental side. So there was all these different topics that the kids had a chance to learn about from, and even college and school stuff from college counseling, how to, you know, how to talk about FAFSA and talk about all these things that you need to know when it comes to college prep and all that stuff. So there was so much topics that were thrown at these kids, and they had a great time at the end of the day.
Now you also talk about, like, you know, the importance, and I know you interacted with some of those young people, but you always talk about, you know, wherever you're from, you know, whatever your background was and everything like that, you always have to represent your culture in a proud but also respectful way. So what does it mean, you know, when you see like these young people saying, yes, you know, this is my Shrine heritage. This is, you know, I'm from Chuk, I'm from Palau, I'm from Yap, like you are, and everything like that, and actually sharing their ideas and, you know, like saying, we've all got these differences between us because of, you know, like of where we grew up and everything, but at the same time, there's a lot of things that we have like the same.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about food, you talk about the language. There are some similar things that in the different languages that we have. So just seeing these kids out there and just seeing the vibe, and it's just different. It's like you know, you have groups that it's a mixture of all these. You have groups here with you have a kid from Chuk, from Guam, and from Shrine, from Pohnpei over here, like singing and just chatting on the side, and so it's just the mingling and everything that I saw. It was just amazing to see.
Okay, so that's Vic Falan's One Micronesia podcast, one of the most popular shows here on KUAM. It's on YouTube right now, but it's going to show on KUAM TV tonight at 6:30, and again on Facebook tomorrow at 10. So I mean, lots of fun.
Oh yeah.
Okay,
definitely.
So Vic, thanks a lot, man. I know this was a highlight of your week. You unfortunately did not get to try that peanut butter and jelly milkshake.
I did not. Daniel did, but Daniel looked like it was delicious.
All right, so thanks a lot, Vic. I know you had a blaster. All right. Because it is Friday, of course, we wanted to let you know to join the online conversation on our social media properties. It is this week's weekly question, and this week we, of course, asked you, what are the most pressing needs in your viewpoint for expectant mothers that lawmakers and people should address on Guam? And here's what you said. On Facebook and Instagram, of course, we are on both platforms at KUM News. Martina said, are the services and equipment available? Are the medical team trained for teamwork? Years back, it's all about teamwork. Very, very fair point, Martina. On Instagram, Anita says, they should and can expect first-rate facilities and well-trained medical personnel. Very, very true. Guinaidza671, also on Instagram, says pregnant and nursing mothers need to be priority lines, like at the DMV, waiting 4+ hours, among other things. All right. And she also added in another comment, please extend maternity leave as Guam has the worst support for mothers. We need more than a month with our newborn kids. Daycare and take kids nearly as long as 2 months. That is still too early to be away from mom. Good job on the comments, everybody. Make sure to check us out on our social media platforms at KUAM News once again. All right, we are going to take a break, but when we come back, we are going to tell you about a glute camp. Nick Delgado gets his rear end in gear and in shape when we return after this.
Dance party.
Let's go.
When inspiration strikes, say yes with the new Priority Unlimited credit card from First Hawaiian Bank. Wherever you shop, whatever you're shopping for, you can earn 2% cash back on everything you buy. From small stuff to big stuff to stuff you want. A card that rewards you for every purchase and helps you stay connected to everything that matters.
Off today, I'm Kelina from Doc's Kitty College.
And I'm Kristen from Doc's Daycare and Preschool.
And we are so honored to be caring for the children of Guam. The Governor's Child Care programs help businesses like ours to really focus on the kids. These programs also help nonprofits and after-school programs and grandparents and so many families.
Visit www.guamchildcare.com to learn more about the Governor's Child Care programs. This ad is paid for with funds administered by DPHSS.
With Pacific Points, your everyday expenses could be helping you save. Earn points at Shell, Foodies Guam, and IT&E. Then redeem for awesome rewards. Want free fuel from Shell or snacks from Foodies Guam? What about discounts on your IT&E bill, free IT&E prepaid cards, or United Mileage Plus Miles? Sign up for free today. Visit PacificPoints.com or download the app. Pacific Points. Do more, get more.
Subscribe to our KUAM News Digest, our weekly email newsletter with all kinds of information straight to your inbox. Just subscribe and we'll make sure to keep you informed and entertained with news from the KUAM News team, what to watch on NBC and CBS, and the latest promotions from KUAM Communications. Go to KUAM.com, click on the newsletter tab at the top of the homepage, register, and you're all set. Brought to you by Uno Go, Guam On Demand.
All right, everybody, the name of this next segment is Yi the Gunmu, because if you are looking to develop your glutes, and who among us is not, move better and feel better, then we have the perfect event for you. It is a glute camp. And joining us with the most Maximus Gluteus is my guy, Nick Delgado, and he is standing by and he has a report for us on how to get in shape.
All right, so one of the first great movements to develop those glutes are any type of hip bridge or thrust type movement. Right now, we have him performing a basic hip bridge, okay? Some things you can do to spice up this movement is actually lifting one leg so we can isolate one side of the glutes versus the other. Perfect form. Keeping that knee at the level of the opposite knee to making sure those hips are equal and parallel towards the ground.
Right. Hey guys.
Woohoo!
Hey y'all, I'm Nurse for HotSpot. We're here with Dr. Tassi Adam.
Yes, that's me.
Who has a glute camp coming up here at Custom Fitness in Antigua.
Yes.
Dr. Adam, tell us about it.
All right.
What are you doing here again?
I'm having him do a single leg bridge, okay? So this is one variation of the many variations for hip bridging. It's a great way and it's a safe way, relatively safe way to develop those glutes, the glutes that we want, because glutes work to extend the hips, straighten and keep us nice and upright. So one great movement that you can add into your exercise arsenal or that you will see at the glute camp, okay? All right. Yes, go ahead, switch. Take it away.
So tell us a little bit about the glute camp that you have coming up. How can people get involved and what can they expect?
Okay, so the name is in itself, Glute Camp, right? We're working to develop the glutes here. There are many muscles that work to develop those glutes, or many exercises, I should say. And so with that being said, we offer a number of days or sessions within the week. We're actually starting next week. Mondays and Wednesdays, it's gonna be at 5:30 here in the PT clinic. And then Tuesdays and Thursdays, it's gonna be at 6 o'clock. Same place, same days, okay? And so it's usually a 6-week cycle to encompass that camp, and they're hour-long sessions, all right? Definitely focusing on glute development. However, it doesn't mean that we're not working to develop the entire body. A lot of my clients have definitely come back to say, man, you know, it's not just my glutes, it's my core's a little bit tighter, my legs are a little bit more developed, I feel stronger, I feel more capable, I'm ready to join the other classes here at Custom Fitness, and I've done things like have weight loss, but feeling like I have more energy, which is, to me.
Energy for sure, Tassie.
Yes.
I can definitely feel
More.
this working.
He's still going. You can go ahead and relax. You can relax. He's still going.
What's some other moves that we can show people what to expect
Perfect.
for the glute camp?
Yes, so as I was mentioning, one of the actions or the functions of the glutes is working to extend the hips and keep us nice and upright.
Okay.
Another thing that it works to do is abduct and rotate outward, or just basically taking that leg away from the body, okay? So this one is called hip abduction or abduction, and all we're doing is bringing that leg away from the body, okay? And so both sides are actually working in this motion, because we have the hip on the standing leg working to stabilize the rest of the body, working to keep us balanced, and then we have the opposite side actually performing that action of the glutes. So I can go ahead and show you the back view. See how there's motion there at the hips, okay? Good. So one of the many actions that the hips work to do as well, okay? All right. Doing great.
Sure that they're even.
Yes. Oh, yes. Making sure the toes are pointed straight ahead and not rotating out, because a lot of times you want to incorporate the other muscles to help achieve this motion.
Yeah.
Okay? One of the other benefits of this class, making sure someone's there, keeping you honest.
Thanks, Coach. What's next?
Okay, so we covered what the glutes do. They extend the hips. They work to abduct or rotate the hips outward. Another thing that they work to do or become more activated with is with single leg movements, or movements that are more compound and more weight bearing. So we already started the standing, but let's start with the basic squat. So I want you to go ahead and set up for a normal squat facing this way.
All right.
Okay? All right, so go ahead and do what you would think is a squat. Okay? So same thing. So now we're putting those hips, the glutes, through the entire range of motion.
I love that you gave me the option to make it my own.
Yes, make it your own, make it your own. And what other benefits we get from this motion is very functional, and we're working to develop the quads as well, okay? And so another benefit to joining our class here at Custom Fitness.
Man, I could definitely feel the sweat. Tassie, just a final note for our viewers here. What do they need to do, and where do they need to go if they want to participate in this year's glute camp?
So you can sign up on our CFG Physical Therapy Instagram, or you can sign up here at Custom Fitness. We are located in Anigua behind 76 Circle K, or Old Ambrose, for those of you who remember where Ambrose was originally located. And so you can either sign up and register here, or you can sign up and register through Instagram. And that's pretty much all you have to do. Last day to sign up is either today or Labor Day Monday, which is coming up very soon, next few days. And then we start on Tuesday, September 6th.
All right, Coach. All right, Doc. Thank you so much for the description to make us bootyful.
Yes, yes.
All right.
I look forward to seeing all you active booty members.
We'll see you guys there too. For now, we'll send it back to you, Jace.
Bye.
All right, I know each and every one of you love that segment. There is a reason why we put this segment right before lunch, everybody. So make sure to check out Tassie and Nick. You can check out our social media for all the links there. Make sure to check out Glute Camp. Tassie's doing really, really good work there. So shout out to our friend Tassie Ada. All right, and when we come back, Nestor Lecanto is standing by. It's Friday, so that means we're getting into the hub. Dr. Ron McNinch is here. Sean Gomitato is here. Ginger Cruz is here. And Nestor is here. And we are going to talk politics when we come back right here on the HotSpot.
Get up-to-the-minute news, plus access to alerts, streaming radio, promotions, and more on your mobile device by downloading the KUAM News mobile app, available at the App Store now.
There's epic Then there's Ultra Epic. Capture life in vivid resolution with Galaxy's most advanced camera system and the built-in S Pen that puts you in control. Every moment, every angle, from sunrise to sundown and beyond. More striking, more stunning than ever. Find the Samsung Galaxy S22 Ultra at your nearest iTunes store or online at ite.net and change the way you work and play.
As the Decision 2022 race shapes up, keep it with KUAM News for all the news you need to know as you head to the polls. From weekly candidate profile analysis on the Hub on KUAM News HotSpot to our online candidate directory on KUAM.com, special features on KUAM Digital and KUAM News Primetime, plus live coverage of forums and debates. We're your one-stop source on every platform. Stay informed with KUAM News, your news leader, the voice of the Marianas.
Hi today, I'm Kelina from Dox City College.
And I'm Kristen from Dox Daycare and Preschool.
And we are so honored to be caring for the children of Guam. The governor's child care programs help businesses like ours to really focus on the kids. These programs also help nonprofits and after-school programs and grandparents and so many families.
Visit www.guamchildcare.com to learn more about the governor's child care programs. This ad is paid for with funds administered by DPHSS.
Dance party.
Let's go.
When inspiration strikes, say yes with the new Priority Unlimited credit card from First Hawaiian Bank. Wherever you shop, whatever you're shopping for, you can earn 2% cash back on everything you buy. From small stuff to big stuff to stuff you want. A card that rewards you for every purchase and helps you stay connected to everything that matters.
With Pacific Points, your everyday expenses could be helping you save. Earn points at Shell, Foodies Guam, and ITE. Then redeem for awesome rewards. Want free fuel from Shell or snacks from Foodies Guam? What about discounts on your ITE bill, free ITE prepaid cards, or United Mileage Plus Miles? Sign up for free today. Visit PacificPoints.com or download the app. Pacific Points. Do more, get more.
Howdy everyone, and welcome to The Hub, our weekly look at all things politics on Guam. Let me introduce our guests for this week. I have next to me Ginger Cruz, Sean Gumatauta, and Dr. Ron McNinch. And we're going to start off the show by taking a look at the results of the primary election. And if you guys can put up those graphics there. Okay, total registered voters, 58,000. Ballots cast, though, only 23,261. And that equals a dismal voter turnout of 40%. We're going to talk about that. All right, in the congressional race, former Speaker Judy Wonpat, 9,678 to Talina Nelson, 7,741. And unopposed was, of course, Senator Jim Moylan with 2,591 votes. In the gubernatorial race, which on the Democratic side, which was the focus all evening, Lou and Josh started out with a lead and never let go of it. 11,960 they finished with to Mike and Bree's 7,212. And Felix and Tony, 2,963. They too, of course, were unopposed. For Attorney General, this was the closest race of the night. Actually, incumbent Levin Camacho was trailing for most of the night, but made a comeback toward the end. So he finished ahead, 11,285 to Doug Moylan's 10,967. And in the senatorial race on the Democratic side, Therese Terlahi, the speaker, tops the list. Chris Malfunction, I still have a hard time calling him Daryl. Chris Malfunction Barnett, a very strong second place, followed by Joe San Augustine, Amanda Shelton, Tina Barnes, Roy Kanata, another newcomer, Sabina Perez, Will Parkinson, Sarah Thomas Nedadog, Dr. Kelly Marsh Titano, a former senator, and former police chief Fred Bordallo, followed by Jose Pito Terlahi, Dwayne San Nicolas, Jonathan Savares, and rounding out the top 15 is Angela Santos. On to the Republicans. Topping the list, Frank Blas Jr., followed by Minority Leader Chris Duenas, Jesse Lujan, another former senator, Joanne Brown, Tom Fisher, a newcomer, doing very well at the number 5 slot, former Senator Mana Silva Tyron, Tello Taitagui, Michelle Titano, Vince Borja, former Senator Sam Beanie Young, David Chrysostimo, Ken Leon Guerrero at 12, Sandra Seo at 13, and Bistra Mendiola and Ian Catling rounding out the top 15 out of just 16 candidates. Okay, that's the results. Let's talk about it. First, let's start with the gubernatorial race. Lou and Josh, Ginger started out with the lead and hung on to it all throughout the night. So what's your reaction?
We're obviously really pleased with the outcome, but at the same time, I think that there was a couple of things that affected the overall voter turnout. You know, first of all, you had motor voters, so we've never really had that before. People who were registered because they got their driver's licenses, so that sort of drove up the number and is responsible for driving down some of the turnout. The second thing is, like, right before the election, there was release of polls which showed Lou and Josh ahead, which I think sometimes which sometimes has an effect to keep people home. They figured, well, you know, we're way ahead.
We didn't release Dr. McNinch's poll until,
right.
To be fair, right, and to be ethical, we didn't release it until after the polls
closed,
yeah.
right?
But there were other polls.
But the anthology poll, the one that you guys covered, came out earlier, so that also brought it down. And then, of course, on the Republican side, you know, almost no contested elections. I mean, you know, it was uncontested in the congressional race and the gubernatorial race, and only one extra in the legislative side. So that also sort of reduced how many people would come out. So I don't know that 40 is necessarily. It's necessarily fair to say that it's that low because of all of those conditions, and I'm looking forward to a lot more people coming out during the general.
We hope so. Yeah.
But speaking from our side, on the Lou and Josh side, I mean, we were really grateful. There was a good turnout by folks. I think that I went around to all the different precincts, and you could see the energy and the excitement, and it was good. I mean, people were engaged, and following the pandemic, where we didn't even have a primary, it was great to see people get back out and vote for us.
Sean, for the Republicans, I know it's hard to gauge really because of a much lower turnout on your side of the ballot, but what's your response?
Right, so when you look at it, again, it was the lowest in the history of a primary. So concern, yes, but for the Republicans, it actually was kind of right in the wheelhouse of where they participate historically in primary elections. So we were still watching it very closely. Obviously, Governor Camacho and Senator Tony really needed to meet the...
They met the minimum. So.
Right, so you had to watch it, but you had to wait till almost 3 a.m. to wait to get to that point. Yeah. Also, there's a lot of opportunity we see when you look at the voting behavior. For Republicans, it was pretty clear that most of the party was voting for their candidates. Contrast, if you look at it, it's a little bit different on the other side of the ballot, where it seemed there might have been, I'll take one person, but maybe not another. But that's okay. I think for the community and the electorate, the biggest thing that we all can take away from this is that there's a lot more excitement now. Now we have a real race now with, you know, that everything's kind of clear, and there's a lot of excitement seen all across the island for the upcoming general. And there's a anticipation that we can maybe hit the 70% and plus voter turnout. I've been saying on this air for over 2 years that if we can see that, then obviously our electorate's doing exactly what we all need them to do, is exercise that right.
Ron, we mentioned your poll. It was spot on. Talk about the results and what you thought.
Sure. And our students do all the hard work for gathering the data, and Eliza Chargaloff, my student, did all the calculations for us. She did a great job. One key thing, everyone talks about the low voter turnout. I disagree with that. I think that we have, compared to years ago, we had 168,000 people in our population. Now we have 150,000 people in our population. And the percentage number for voter turnout really doesn't function well, because we have, it's really an artificial view. So I don't view, if you look at the real numbers of people who voted versus the real numbers of people who voted in previous elections, we had a fairly normal and average turnout in that regard. And so the statistics sometimes can lie in terms of giving us an impression that there was a low voter turnout. And I agree certainly with Ginger's point about the motor voter issue and other issues. On polling, Ginger was also right about how polls can depress people voting behavior. My candidate won, I don't have to go vote. The other thing that really drove this election, which doesn't drive it at the general election, is the weekend. So normally what happens on Guam is we have a voting day on Tuesday. Often we have one or two holidays that bracket it. We don't have it this year. That's Halloween and All Souls Day, All Saints Day. We have these holidays that bracket it, and so what happens is the election is following a long party weekend. And so we're going to have a long party weekend in the next election cycle that's then going to push people out into voting behavior, because they're going to spend all weekend talking to their friends and family about the things that they like or don't like. And that's a prime opportunity for candidates to get their message out.
Yeah, I don't think energy, like Sean was saying, is going to be a problem for the general election, maybe as much as it was for the primary. And certainly more Republicans, I think, will be energized to come out. But yeah, getting back to the voter turnout, I think that 58%, supposedly a record number of registered voters since '95.
Yeah, that's 58,000, right?
Yeah, 58,000. It just kind of threw things off, because we were expecting 58,000. We got 20. I forget what the number. 23,000 actually voted. So, I mean, from that standpoint, it would appear just from the numbers that it was a low turnout, but for those reasons, it may be that kind of skewed it. All right, let me ask you. I was going to come up with this really, quaint phrase: 1,000, pictures worth 1,000 words. But I'm not going to go there because you guys didn't like what I said. Anyways, so the picture I'm talking about is Michael St. Nicholas with Felix and Tony, and that's been circulating on social media. So, does that translate into votes for Felix and Tony?
I think it'd be absolutely crazy to think that it did not. I think that when friends and family are having dinner together, talking about the results of an election, that folks who support both aren't going to get a little bit revved up. I think that for all of us, the community is focusing on, yes, partisan for the most part, right? But what do we want to see for Guam at the end of the day? And so the image is perhaps speaking to that.
Do you know if there is an agreement already? Is for Mike to support Felix?
I mean, from what we've heard, is that he is supposed to come out and make some kind of statement. I think he's made it clear a couple times. So we're all anxiously waiting to hear what he has to say about not only the current or the wrap up of the primary, but what does he want to do moving forward? So I think the whole community is waiting to see what he's going to do next.
Okay, Ginger, what is the reaction from the Democratic side?
Well, I think it's important to understand that there's Mike St. Nicholas and then there's the supporters. And when you look at the island in general, we know that there's a 60-40 split Democrat-Republican. In general, it's like 42-58. So there's generally a lot more Democrats. So I think it's difficult to say that Mike St. Nicholas has supporters that are just simply going to follow what he wants to do. I mean, he has, every right to make his decision on what he wants to do. But I think that right now we're really in a period of healing where the Democrats are coming together, they're looking at their own slate, and it's about the Democratic Party deciding what kind of a future do we want for Guam. And I think as they start to see the general election campaign roll out, I think there's going to be a very clear choice. I think it's going to become apparent. We've got two records to compare. The Lou and Josh record of all the things that they've done, all the challenges that they've been through. And in this case, you've got the Camacho record because he also was in office, and there's things that we can look at and we can compare. And so, I think the Democrats are going to look at their candidate. I think bringing the Democratic Party back together is really important. And I think at the village level, you're seeing a little bit of and this is just my general view, a little bit less of this hard line, just vote Democrat or just vote Republican. I think nowadays you're seeing a lot more people who are falling into the independent and into that sort of moderate group in the middle. And they're going to be looking at records, they're going to be looking at the candidates, they're going to be looking to see who do they trust, who do they support, who do they want to move forward for the next 4 years with. And in that sense, the Lou and Josh campaign is very optimistic that, the record is clear and all the efforts that they've made to do the best that they could for the people of Guam, it's really starting to show. You're seeing the economy come roaring back. Just the fact that it was so bad in the middle of a pandemic and we were able to go from 19% unemployment to 5% unemployment in a year. It shows how much work was done and how much care was put in. So it's going to be things like that. It's going to be the issues that are going to come out there. And I think people are going to judge based on the candidates themselves But also, I think party loyalty is going to play a part.
Ron, what do you think of that picture? And we've talked before many times about how the Democrats have kind of given it to the Republicans. We had Felix the first 2 times and then Eddie the next 2 times, and that was attributed to a rift post-primary among the Democrats. What are your thoughts?
Well, I think there are 25,000 voters on Guam who haven't expressed an opinion yet. And that's where the game is, in my opinion. It's not really whether Mike's folks, if he has any folks, and I'm not being in the pejorative when I say that, that is, does he have an actual substructure of people who support him, or are they affiliates? And that is it a very weak tie that he has with them, or is it a strong tie? We don't know that yet. But I think that in general, I think that at the general, there's going to be a very different set of dynamics than happened during the primary. And also all the bullet voting effects you saw in the legislative races, where you have the top 5 Democrats who are majorly outpacing the rest of the herd, that has to stop for the Democrats to be successful. And so they have to get the Democrats have to get all their folks to vote for everyone to also work on their legislative game. It's not just the governor's game. These 2 points are pretty intricately interlinked. And the same goes for the Republicans. The Republicans, if the Republicans want a governor from the Republican side, they also need the legislature. And so they have to work on both sides of the coin. And so I think that it's open season. I think that there's a lot of politicking that needs to be done to pull people in, and I think this is going to be a fairly close race. I don't think it's going to be a runaway race for any candidate.
Yeah, and there's those that interpret it, and I think it may be a miscalculation to suggest that 11,000 some votes for Lou and Josh, and you add Mike and Felix and Tony's together, and doesn't equal Lou's votes. But then again, there's some that say that was all Lou's base that came out. And so there's more coming from Felix's side, and if he gets a certain number of Mike's votes, that they can surpass that. I don't know, just throwing that out there. Go ahead.
If I can just mention one other quick point. The Election Commission has great reports they produce. They produce statistics on all this. If you look at 2002, Robert Underwood's number in 2002 at the primary flatlined. It didn't go up at all. He didn't do anything really to play the game, so to speak, to incorporate anybody. It absolutely flatlined. And so that's the danger of taking these things for granted, is there's a very good historical record in those election reports and voting reports to show district by district and precinct by precinct where people go up and down. And you have to be really careful and pay attention to those.
Well,
things.
there's 2 really interesting points, I think, that I saw from the stats. The first one is if you look at the AG race. So in the AG race, I mean, what was the overwhelming urge among Democrats to go vote for Doug Moylan? There really wasn't one. So if you just look at the AG race on its own, it was 11-10, right? So if you use that to kind of give you an indication of how many crossover votes there could have been, how many, and we all talked about this before, I mean, Dr. McNitch pointed this out before, how many crossover votes? The Republicans didn't really have a race on their side of the ticket. They needed enough to be able to get qualified. But then we all know that there were crossover, that not crossover, but Republicans going to the Democrat side and voting on the Democrat side. So that softens the numbers. That also changes the dynamic of, were those really supporters, or were those Republicans that were trying to advantage or disadvantage folks on the Democrat side of the ballot? So I think that is a statistic that was very telling for me, because the AG race really was an outlier. If you look at the numbers, it was very interesting to see 10,000 and 11,000.
Okay, and if you look at the number, when you look at the 20% of those who voted for Governor Liu, that is a more telling number for what we could expect in the general. Because if they top out at 20% of the total electorate, huge opportunity for not only for the Republicans to go get those votes where maybe the Governor Liu couldn't grab them, but also for if it was today, we'd have a 10-5 Republican majority based on percentages.
Yeah. Both sides, I think, have some work to do. We're going to take a short break, and we'll be back with more of The Hub right after this.
It's Feed Me Fridays on KUAM News HotSpot. Good eats, good company, and beyond good chow. With Team KUAM checking out Guam's most tantalizing, tempting menu items every Friday on KUAM News HotSpot or stream online. Brought to you by Devondale, real milk from free grazing cows.
As the Decision 2022 race shapes up, keep it with KUAM News for all the news you need to know as you head to the polls. From weekly candidate profile analysis on the hub on KUAM News Hotspot to our online candidate directory on KUAM.com, special features on KUAM Digital and KUAM News Primetime, plus live coverage of forums and debates. We're your one-stop source on every platform. Stay informed with KUAM News, your news leader, the voice of the Marianas. All right, welcome back, everyone. Sean, you had the Lincoln dinner last night. One of the photos that was shared was Sabrina Salas-Matanani was there, our colleague here at KUAM before. What should we read into that?
She was a guest of Governor Camacho, and obviously it was great to see her. Hadn't seen her the entire cycle, so it was, I think she was well received by many of those who were in attendance, and I think for the most part, her being there was very important for that event, because it was like, wow, she's here. But also Jen Uggan was there too, Frank Uggan's wife, and she was on the campaign trail with First Lady Joanne. So it was kind of a way to kind of get everyone kind of riled up. But it was a great Lincoln dinner. Governor Calvo had a great kind of rah-rah speech, if you will, and then followed by Felix as a keynote, and all the senators were there. And I think the people, as you know, we were talking about it yesterday or last night. It was the biggest one they've ever had. And they filled that ballroom, so kudos to the Republican Party of Guam for getting that kind of turnout. And it's a fundraiser, so trying to put all that money back into what would be that fight for both the governor's office and the legislature.
Bree, what do you make of Bree's presence there at the Lincoln dinner?
Again, I think it was a really hard-fought primary, so it's sort of understandable that you have this reaction from folks. And, there's a certain amount of healing that needs to go on. There's a certain amount of very emotional responses that have to be respected. And I think that what you will get from Lou and Josh is respect for that. I mean, they understand this is difficult, and races are really tough on everybody that runs. They invest a lot of time and effort. But the important thing is to note that, up until this point, we've been very warm, open, to everybody, to Mike, to Bree, to their supporters. It's important that it not be an emotional vote when it comes down to it. We believe it really needs to be a vote about the record. We believe it needs to be a vote about trust and about, the performance of the teams. And we think that when we get into the discussion of that getting over these emotional times, getting over the fire and the heartbreak of an election, once we get 1-2 weeks into this, we're pretty confident that we'll be able to hopefully bring everybody together, have good conversations, and see if we can't get back to the issues and talking to the people of Guam about what it is we're going to do and how it is we're going to support them.
I'm sure everybody knows, but that was former First Lady Joanne with Bree in that photo. Ron, you got any comments?
Well, I went to the Lincoln dinner last night. I go to every major political event that I hear about or get invited to. I love to
They
go
let
to.
you in the room?
They do. They do. It's always fun, and it's always fun to listen to what people have to say. And people are very blunt. Very nicely done party last night from the Republican side. It was a very, very nice event. Because the governor's incoming, I also went to an event yesterday on the human rights. Very nice human rights event at the Hilton, and the governor was there, and I was able to say hi to her for a couple of minutes. Public officials during the election cycle have to get out, and they have to have people see them and interact with them. And I think both candidates are doing that very actively, and they've always done that. Both Governor Camacho and Governor Leon Guerrero have both been very as much as possible, particularly during COVID conditions, they've interacted with the public, and these are the points. But you can learn a lot of good things by going to these events. If you go to the Jefferson Jackson dinner or go to the Lincoln dinner, people speak their mind and tell you everything. So it's kind of a way of getting inside information a little bit.
Yeah. Let's talk about Democratic reconciliation, Ginge. I know that Tony Babauta, your chairman, is planning to call a meeting of the Central Executive Committee and talk about pledges to the committee, loyalty. How is he going to maneuver that?
As far as we know, that's been put on hold. And speaking on behalf of the Lou and Josh campaign, I can tell you that, we're not about forcing people to do things. That's not the point of an election. The point of an election, especially a primary, is to really sort of test, see where the strength is in the party, and then to come together and heal afterwards. And I think the message has been clear. If you listen to the governor and the lieutenant governor that night of the primary, I mean, we were there until about 4:30 in the morning. And the message that they put out was really not trying to force anybody to sign any kind of a pledge, but really open arms, really saying, come talk to us, find out what we're about if you're not already part of the campaign. And we've got room for everybody. It's a big tent. The Democratic Party is, because it's the biggest party on Guam, it's also a little bit messy. It's like a family where people will disagree, and they have, we saw that from the last gubernatorial election, right? And going up against, there were 4 Democratic teams and 1 Republican team. And Lou and Josh managed to make it across the finish line, even with a write-in campaign, which kind of proved when it gets down to it, they are able to pull together the support of the Democratic Party. So we're hoping this time to get beyond any sort of, forcing people to commit, and really just being open and saying, come talk to us, listen, join us at the events that we have in all of the villages all around the island, and judge for yourself. And we believe that if that's the measure, that people will come on board, because they'll know that we're the team they can trust, and we're the team that's going to really move Guam ahead.
Sean, Felix has put out a news release appealing to Democrats, calling Democrats, hey, come roost over here.
I think we've watched as, and not the campaign, but the party, the Democratic Party, have just fits and starts over the entire cycle, and that's on them. But for our campaign is to try to bring those folks who might have felt that, hey, that was not what we are so used to as a Democratic Party member, and maybe that would be kind of a way to bring, get them, bring them to vote, but also to get them active, and if they feel that way and that strongly, to be that little avenue to do so. It was, and that's for them. I'm hoping that they're going to try to figure it out at some point. But for us as a campaign, reaching all across to all of those Republican Democrats, there's Republicans who are working in the administration. It's interesting how for the incumbent to be able to take some top-notch Republicans, and they've been helping for many years, and they're all active too. So the idea is, again, bringing everyone in and focusing on what will be the task for the next a couple weeks before we have a general. So we're excited. It's this excitement. I can't describe it any other way, because I think for those who will say, okay, well, I'm not going to be, I don't care if I'm, going to stick my neck out or I'm going to get chopped. We got to get ready for a general that everyone should be inclusive with.
Okay, we got to take another short break. We'll catch you, Dr. Ron, on the other side. We'll be back with more right after this. As the Decision 2022 race shapes up, keep it with KUAM News for all the news you need to know as you head to the polls. From weekly candidate profile analysis on the hub on KUAM News HotSpot to our online candidate directory on KUAM.com, special features on KUAM Digital and KUAM News Primetime, plus live coverage of forums and debates. We're your one-stop source on every platform. Stay informed with KUAM News, your news leader, the voice of the Marianas. All right, we're back. We've been talking about the gubernatorial, but let's go talk about the congressional race, particularly Talina versus Judy Wonpat. Ron, what are your thoughts?
So
it was neck and neck for a while, but then Judy pulled ahead.
It was. So I went to the congressional debate. My daughter was here. And if you have adult daughters, they constantly rip on their dad. So if you're a dad, you better get used to it now. My daughter took a picture of me where I fell asleep at the congressional debate.
Uh-oh.
That's how low energy that race was. And so I think Talina probably should have injected more energy into the race and went after Speaker Wompat's record or whatever, any other thing. And I think, and vice versa, there should have been more interplay. There just wasn't a lot. And so I think that the successful candidate in the delegate for the general election will be the side that really stirs it up more. And so we're going to probably see more energy happen in the general election.
Ginger, speaking of rifts, we're hearing that Talina was not very happy about what happened, and that she felt that she was kind of the second choice of the party. Your thoughts on that?
Well, again, I'm not going to speak for the party, but just sort of analyzing where it's going. I mean, the first thing that's really important to look at is there was an agreement from the very beginning between Judy and Talina that they were not going to do a bad campaign against each other, and they kept to that. I mean, I think if you looked at the debate, it was a very civilized debate. There weren't any blows that were landed. So if you're looking from the campaign perspective, I think it was a well-fought race, and I think they both did their best, and they were both really very honorable in how they approached it. So now it's sort of the time to heal and to come back together. And, external forces, yeah, there's all of that at play. But when it comes right down to it, one of the things that, as a Democrat, people need to understand is the Democratic Party in the United States, and this I know a lot about, is the one party that for decades and continues to be the party that supports the territories. The Republicans are the ones that took away committee votes for the territories. The Republicans are the ones that consider minorities and territories to be tokens. So one of the things that's going to come into play when you're looking at the congressional race is not only is Judy well known, she was the most speaker, she held the speaker position. The only person who held it more was her father, who also was a congressman. So it's somebody who's well known, somebody who's passionate about Guam, somebody with a ton of experience, who understands all of these issues. But at the same time, she's also a Democrat, and the Democrats are the ones who stick up for the territories. The Democrats are the ones who fight to give Medicaid reimbursements, who fight to give a percentage of federal funds to the islands. The Republicans, they'll embrace you and take a picture with you and call you a token, like, oh, look, we've got a territory with us. But just as a track record, the Republicans have not been very supportive of the territories. So that is going to be one of the issues, I think, that we face going forward.
Okay, let's get Sean in here.
For me, for that race is I'm hoping we can hear policy. The experience stuff, I think we can figure that out. But federal policy, I want to hear more from both on what they plan to do for the federal policy considerations for the territory. If they start to go off, I had this experience and great, but how is that going to help us on the Jones Act? How is that going to improve our funding for our some of our justice programs across the entire executive and judicial branches? How are we going to bring more resources to farmers, small businesses? Those things need to be out. If we have to defer again to Kalili for stuff, we're in trouble. We need to kind of focus. What is the most important thing for federal policy for Guam? Obviously, it's military for the most part. The Armed Services Committee. I want to hear what do they plan to do in the committee. I don't want to hear everything else about it because it's quite honestly it's all a bunch of noise. But the community has to hear what are the federal policies they are going to bring forward. Both have to. If they don't, well, then the one who does it better is going to be the one that wins on Election Day.
Really quickly, Ron. I'm sure you've heard the same things about Talina. Is that something Jim Moylan can take advantage of?
I think that it's open season for this race. I think that both sides are going to have to make the play that they make. And it has to have more direction than it had at the primary level. I'm a bit of a critic of the primary for that reason. That is, it creates these artificial dynamics. So.
All right. We'll take one more break and be back with wrap up the show in just a moment. Please stay with us.
This year, we're expanding our Decision 2022 platform to include comprehensive coverage of the election in the Northern Marianas. Stay with KUAM News for candidate conversations on Pacific matters, interviews with the gubernatorial teams, coverage of debates and forums, and live coverage on the general election night. We're your news leader, the voice of the Marianas.
All right, folks, we got about a minute and a half, so I'm going to go quickly to our guests and ask them. We didn't talk about the legislature, but seeing who the candidates are, what's your thoughts on who's going to win the majority and by how much?
My money definitely on Democrats retaining the majority. It's a lot stronger slate of candidates, so I'm saying definitely 8, if not 9.
Okay.
It has been a while since we've had a Republican majority, and I think we're finally, after nearly 20 years, I think this is the time that it's going to happen. Some incumbents new, they're not really new ones, but these great candidates. I think I'm not going to put a number, but I think it's going to be Republican majority.
Okay. Closer, 8-7. That would be the closest.
Yes, perhaps.
Yeah. And Ron.
I think it's a toss-up. I think this is a candidate's race to win if they want to win, and that goes for all positions, all offices.
Any newcomers? I think Chris is going to be up there, yeah?
I've been impressed
Or Daryl.
with some of these new. Daryl, yeah, I like Daryl.
DC, if you will.
I was joking with him yesterday. I snuck up behind him when he was waving, and I'm like, "Hey, man, you're not supposed to be on this corner." And he turned around. And he was a little bit surprised. So I took a picture with him. I think he's doing great. I think that there's some other on the Republican side. There's some really neat candidates that might come up, and it's always good to see the young Turk or the new blood types of candidates come back in, and also the previous candidates or previous senators come back in. So that's going to be part of the dynamic.
Right.
All right, that's our show. Wish we had more time, but we don't. So that's our show. Thanks for watching, everybody, and we'll see you next week on The Hub.
All right. Let's go, Brandon.